What's up, ladies and gents, Ghost here, back with some more Battlefield 4, and today I'm going to be doing a guide for all of the different launchers available to the Engineer class. We're going to be going over their damage models, advantages and disadvantages of the various different launchers, and I'm also going to be sharing a few tips and tricks with you guys that I personally like to use. So the first launcher that's available to you as an engineer is the MBT Law, and this weapon will hit for a maximum of 21 damage on a main sort of battle tank or an IFV, so any armoured vehicle, and its little niche is that it will home onto the vehicle. So if you fire anywhere in the vehicle's general vicinity, it will sort of shoot up in the air and do a top-down attack, as you can see in the background footage there. Now, while this sounds pretty nice and cushy, it does come with somewhat of a disadvantage there. The fact that it always does a top-down attack means it is always going to hit for 21 damage on an armoured tank, meaning it's going to take you 5 shells just to take out one tank. And if the tank driver is any decent at all, he's probably going to have killed you before you manage to get 5 shots off on him. So with that said, that leads us on to the RPG, which is making a comeback from Battlefield 3, and this weapon is awesome. It's probably one of my favourite launchers, and it's also the first of the non-guided weapons. But as you're going to see here, we'll go over to the test range, and I'm going to show you guys why having non-guided weapons is sometimes a huge advantage. Alright guys, so here we are in the test range, and I know a lot of you guys will know this already, but for those who are new to Battlefield 4 and are not familiar with the damage models, where you attack a vehicle like a tank from, especially with a non-guided weapon like an RPG or a SMAW, is very important. So we're just going to do a few tests here. Now, first of all, let's hit the tank here from the front. This is the most armoured part of the tank, so we're going to hit it straight on here, perpendicular to the tank in the front, and let's just see how much damage that did. Okay, we're on 77, so that shot did 23 damage. Bear in mind already that that damage is more than the damage of the Law. Right, now let's go and take a shot from the side here. 35 damage from the side there. So let's repair up once again, and now we're going to hit the tank from its weakest spot here, and we're going to go around the rear and hit it bang on in the bum. And as you can see, it's fizzing and spluttering, it's disabled, 45 health left. That shot did 55 damage. So I'm sure you guys can already realize that this thing can take a tank out in 2 shots. If you're right behind the tank and you hit him perpendicular here, you can take a tank down in 2 shots. Compare that with the 5 shots of the MBT Law, and that is a pretty big difference. Now, another thing that matters is not just where you attack the tank, but the angle of the trajectory of the shot. So you could see there, I hit the tank from the back, and I hit him straight on here. So let's try an angle here. If we shoot the tank in the back from this sort of an angle, this is going to be a glancing shot. Let's see how much damage that one did. Only 22. So it's not just where you hit the tank. Hitting the tank bang on, completely perpendicular in the rear, is really where you're going to be able to do the most amount of damage. So as you can see, the RPG is an extremely strong weapon. If used correctly, you can take down almost any vehicle in 2 shots. If you happen to hit a helicopter, which definitely have weaker armor than the ground armored vehicles, you can often take them down in 1 shot as well. If I had to say that the RPG had a big weakness, it's most likely its fly time. It doesn't have a huge amount of bullet drop. It's pretty easy to compensate for that, but it does have quite a long fly time. And talking about fly time, before we move on to talking about the SMAW, I'm going to show you guys the difference between these 2 weapons. So these towers are roughly the same distance apart here. This one, well, this one's maybe a little bit closer. What the hell was that? Okay, never mind. So we're going to fire this one here, and you're going to see the flight time of the RPG, and then we're going to switch straight over to the SMAW. You're going to see the difference in flight speed between these 2. So here's the RPG. Alright, and now we have the SMAW. So as you guys can see, the SMAW is definitely easier to use than the RPG. It's got a higher, faster flight time, and it has less drop than the RPG. So it's definitely going to be easier to hit moving targets. But let's see here how it compares in damage. If I correctly remember this, I think we did 23 damage in the front with the RPG. So let's see how much the SMAW can do. 21 damage, so just slightly less than the RPG there did in the front, and the exact same amount that the MBT Law will always do. So let's try a side shot following that. 32 damage there, so once again, slightly less than the RPG. Alright, so let's check out the rear damage. Before, we did 55 damage with the RPG. Let's see how the SMAW compares. So it has been disabled, or sorry, it has taken a mobility hit once again, and it has done 48 damage there. So these are definitely very important numbers here. This 48 damage means that it is going to take you 3 projectiles to take out a tank, even if you hit it from the rear all 3 of those times, whereas the RPG can take people down in 2. So I think based on those numbers, I would definitely give the advantage to the RPG. I know that I certainly use the RPG a lot more than I do the SMAW, but that said, it is a nice weapon to have if you're taking out enemy aircraft. That faster flight time that the SMAW actually has makes it much easier to actually target and pull off a tricky shot on a helicopter. Alright guys, so next up we have the Javelin, which is the first of these sort of proper guided rocket launchers. This is a laser guided one. So the way this works is you have to lock onto a target, fire away your missile, and then you have to hold that lock on in order to hit the target. It will always hit for 25 damage, and it will always do a top-down attack, very similarly to how the MBT Law does. Now, where this rocket launcher's advantage really lies is in its range. It has a ridiculous range of 350 meters from which you can lock on to any ground vehicle and fire, and it will go straight up in the sky, and more than likely it's going to hit the vehicle unless he drives under a bridge or something like that. And from that sort of range, you're just not going to be able to pull off a hit with any other kind of launcher like an RPG or a SMAW, unless the vehicle is like completely stationary and you're extremely good with bullet drop and that sort of thing. But seriously, at that sort of long, insane range, the Javelin is really your only option. You're going to have to stay locked on the entire time that you're firing the shot, however, so if there are any enemy infantry lurking around the next corner, you can pretty much bet your ass that they are going to take advantage of that, so just be careful. So just to show you guys a little trick here with the Javelin, you can actually hit with 2 missiles in quick succession. So what you do here is you lock on, fire a missile, lose your lock on, and as you can see the missile is going to go back up there, reload, regain your lock on, and then fire the second missile. And as you can see there, the first missile caught back up with the tank, hit it, and then the second missile I fired hit shortly after. So you can really take a tank down to at least 50 HP using this method. So next up we've got the Swat, which is a wire-guided missile, much like the wire-guided missile, the tow missile on the IFVs, if you've played around with that a bit, so it will follow your cursor wherever you aim. Now, a little trick you used to be able to do with this weapon was similar to what I did with the Javelin before. You used to be able to fire a first shot, zoom out, reload, zoom back in and fire a second shot, and then both shots would hit wherever your cursor was. But it seems they've now taken that out of the game. Whenever I fired a first shot when I was trying this out, when I reloaded, that first shot would no longer follow where I was aiming anymore. So it seems that you can only fire one at a time now. So let's take a look at the damage this thing will do to a tank. We fire here from the front. It's done 22 damage, so I believe that's 1 more damage than we did with the SMAW there, and a little bit less, 1 less damage than we did with the RPG. So let's take a shot here from the side of the tank. Okay, 34 damage there, so once again, quite comparable to the SMAW. You'll also notice, though, that the flight time of this missile is probably slower than the SMAW. It's not quite as quick. It's probably a little bit quicker than the RPG, I feel, but not quite as fast as the SMAW. Okay, so here we go for our rear shot. Okay, 52 damage, so that one actually did more than the SMAW did. And it even did as much, almost as much, as the RPG. So the important factor here being that we did over 50 damage, meaning that if you get 2 rear shots with this weapon, you can take that tank down in 2 hits rather than the 3 of the SMAW. And you also have to remember that this is a wire-guided missile. So damage-wise, the Swat seems to be smack bang in the middle of the RPG and the SMAW, a little bit better than the SMAW in damage, but not quite as good as the RPG. So what about its wire-guided ability? What do I think about that? Well, it can be handy in some situations. For example, if you're firing at a tank and you can see your missile is not on target, you can always quickly zoom in and get it back on target to hit that tank. But it's also not so handy in other situations. A lot of the time, there'll be a lot of enemy soldiers around and you'll be pillaring. You'll want to just get a quick shot off with your RPG or your SMAW and then duck back behind cover again. And having a wire-guided launcher in those kind of situations isn't always the best thing. That said, you can also pull off shots from a lot longer ranges. You know, if you're up to sort of 200 meters away, you can still get a shot off as long as there's no obstacles between your launcher and the vehicle that you're trying to hit with the straw. But with the RPG or the SMAW, it's probably not very likely to hit. So last but not least, we have the anti-air weapons, the Stinger and the Igler. They are pretty identical, but they have a couple of small differences here. So damage-wise, these weapons are exactly the same. I tested this out on a scout heli, and they both hit for 45 damage. So damage models seem to be identical. The differences come in the range and the lock-on mechanisms. The Stinger has a max range of 350 meters, but it's a fire and forget missile, meaning that you can lock onto a target, fire the missile, and then you don't have to lock on anymore. You can go back to whatever you were doing, having a cup of tea and a biscuit, whatever it may be. And with the Igler, however, you have to lock on and you have to stay locked on just like you do with the Javelin. But the bonus you get here with the Igler is that it has 100 meters more range than the Stinger. It's got 450 meters max range. So here's another little trick that you can use with the Igler, and it's pretty much the same one as the Javelin here since it's a lock-on and hold weapon. So you shoot off your missile, reload, and as you can see the missile just goes off up into the blue sky there, lock on again, fire a second missile, and you can actually get a double attack there with 2 missiles in one, and that's definitely going to catch any pilot up there in the sky off guard. Alright guys, so that's the end of this one. Thanks for staying with me if you stuck to the end of this video. I know it was quite a long one, so I'm sorry for that, but I just had so much information I had to get into this video, and I hope you guys found it all useful. If you did, maybe you can do me a favour and give us a rating there down below. Quickly, before I go, I just wanted to mention to you guys that I've been streaming quite a lot of BF4 over on my channel on Twitch. You can find that down in the description below this video. I stream Hearthstone quite a lot and sometimes from StarCraft 2, and I love it when you guys come over and hang out with me and we can have a chat, and usually the guys that are watching my stream, like, we end up playing some games together on BF4, and it's like a whole lot of fun. So if you want to know when I'm streaming, you can either follow me on Twitch, or if you follow me on Twitter, I'll always tweet whenever I go live, and sometimes I'll even post a little video here on the channel so you guys know about that. Alright guys, that was all from me today, so thanks once again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.